Hello, and I'm going to show you a little card today which is using the Field and Flower Designer Series paper, which I think is really lovely and fresh. It uses some nice springy colours. On this particular card you can see I've paired it up with the Bumblebee yellow and a little bit of Flirty Flamingo pink just lurking in there to give it a bit of a lift. And it looks as though it might use lots of bits of supplies, so it's a bit of a sneaky card because you've got the various layers. I can show you how I've managed to get all the different bits of the yellow out of the same piece of card. So I'm just going to pop that to one side and I'm going to show you, as you will have seen, we'll start off with a Whisper White base as normal, and then I've got another piece of the Field and Flower. I'm going to use the greeny blues this time. You could use the alternatives like that as always. You know what it's like with Stampin' Up papers. You can use both sides depending on which you want, but I'm going to go for the one with that one. So I've chosen a contrasting colour. In this instance I've chosen Pool Party as my back colour. But as I'm about to show you, what I've done is I've taken, first of all I measured out my back card, which is just slightly smaller than my main white card, okay? And what will happen is that will stick over the top of there. But before I do that, I wanted to show you what I did. So using the stitched rectangle dies, I've cut out a piece in the middle, as you can see, to use as a frame. So there's the frame, which has come out of it. And I love it because you've got that little detail, the stitching. I don't know if you can get it. I don't think I'll be able to get it close enough. The two layers of stitching that go around there. But also, I've managed to then take out the bit that was in the middle of that, the bit that was in there. Basically, I've used that, you can see, because the spacing fits, I've used that to cut out the word from the well-written dies of the thanks. So it's an economical card. So I'm just going to pop those to one side. So whilst you or whoever you give your card to will have no idea you've used the card so wisely in terms of what you're doing with it. So just to get things moving, I'm going to stick down my Field and Flower DSP onto, and sometimes I'm just looking because sometimes I do think sometimes there is a right way up and there isn't a right way up. It doesn't really matter though in this paper, and I'm just going to make sure it's nicely centered with a nice clear sight of the Pool Party all the way around, and just making sure I've got it as straight as possible. There we go. So look, no one will ever know you've got that hole in the back. All right, so if I just bring you back the original one so you can see, I've then taken the frame and I put it in the middle, but I'm going to put some mini dimensionals on each of the corners to give it a lift. That way I'm going to be able to tie on the little bit of thread just to give it that extra boost at the end. So let me show you that bit first. So mini dimensionals, as you know, are smaller than the normal dimensionals, but in this instance, and I've just realised I forgot to get my scissors out. Hang on a second. What I'm doing with the scissors, I'm just making them really tiny by just cutting them in half. It is a bit fiddly, but this way you'll know that they won't be seen coming through the other side of the frame. So just bear with the fiddliness and you'll end up with some nice mini dimensionals with which to go on to the, just doing it so I've got this pointy bits at the corners, chopping them that way into each of my corners. That way everything's going to be nice and easy for you to tie things round. And there's my frame all ready to go. So I'm just going to put my frame roughly, I'm going to hit slightly over, so there. And I just want to make sure it's sort of parallel to the edges. But just take your time with that bit. Okay, there you go. Okay, okay so far. So the next bit I'm just going to do is I'm just going to do the banner bits. That's already made up, so we're ready to go for that afterwards. So you just leave that one there and you can see that as well. So in this instance I've taken a piece of shaded spruce and my white card, so I'm going to stick with some fine tip glue on the hope that it's behaving itself. And then I'm just going to stick it on slightly to the right of my there we go. So there's my thanks. Okay, and then I'm just going to turn it over and just put a bit of glue on the bottom. I'm deliberately just going to leave a bit of edge on this side. Let me move it up slightly, sorry, there we go. It's going to move a little edge on this side so we're not sticking it straight on, so you can see the green, because otherwise you end up covering it up. A nice effect, but I want it a bit bigger than that. There we go. So there's my banner all ready to go. Okay, so far we've got the card frontage, you've got your banner which will go on there. Now probably the fiddliest bit is actually tying on the piece of ribbon or twine. In this instance I had some nice twine, which is, I have to say, from our previous project, which has got a little bit of a silvery thread in it, but any of the thin twines, there's lots of things. So you could have the natural linen thread, you could go for a plain white baker's twine, or you can get some white baker's twine and colour it with blender pens. And I'm just going to do a little bow. The only thing I would say is when you come to trim it off, you just need to make sure your scissors are nice and sharp for when you do the cutting to cut the length. And don't pull it too tight or you'll break the edge of your frame. So those bows in my head are a little bit big, so I'm just going to reduce it slightly. Make sure it's tight so it's not really right. I'm going to move those to one side, then I can see where I can put on my sentiment, knowing that they'll fall down. So I still think my bow, my circle bits of my bow are still a little big. So it's all about proportion and what feels right to you. So I would suggest just before you glue things down, just try it and make sure you're comfortable with how it sits. There, I still think that was a little bit big. Take that one in, there we go. So I think that's looking okay. So I kept them a bit longer on that one, but okay, I'm comfortable with that. So the next thing I'm just going to do is I'm just going to put some dimensionals onto here. Pop my thanks on. So I just need to bring it in a little bit closer so I can get it tucked up near the, make sure it's straight. There we go. Now I can see how that all looks. I'm just going to carefully trim my twine. And don't forget, if you're uncertain, trim less. You can always go back and trim more. You can't do the other way around. So it's coming together. And then finally, well, not quite finally, see, you're the only one who'll know that hole is in the back. I'm just going to pop some dimensionals. You could use bigger dimensionals, but to be honest, I've only got the little ones out at the moment. So they'll be perfectly fine. Pop some dimensionals onto the back. Oops, did I get the one? There we go. And I've got some basic white as a card base. Carefully line it up and pop it down. And then finally, I've just got a couple of diamantes to go on to give it a little bit of extra bling. And there's my second thank you card. So just to run through, it's the well-written dies that have done the lettering. I've used the field and flower paper for the DSP, the stitched rectangle dies which made the frame and also cut out the section in the middle which I've used to cut out the word, a little bit of twine and some diamantes. Hope you enjoy.